All right, away we go. It is the BCJ podcast, brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on BearcatJournal.com. Make sure, like me, Sunday, I'm going to the Reds game. You know what I'm going to do first? I'm going to stop by the Holy Grail, see our good friends, have a beverage, maybe get some delicious pizza or wings, or maybe I'll try Kelly's favorite and get the Reuben wontons. But whatever it is, make sure when you're down at the Banks and you are having a good time downtown, you stop by and visit the #1 sports bar in the city, our longest sponsor, and a growing list of sponsors. We're busting at the seam with sponsors. But right now, the Holy Grail is the catalyst, the ones that believed in us first. So make sure you are supporting those that are supporting us. All right, Dave, this might be a 3-hour show. You're muted. You're muted, Dave. You're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
As our loyal listeners know, that will not thrill me, but we do have a lot to talk about. So if it ends up being that long, then it ends up being that long.
We have a lot to get to. We will get to our Team Ticker Big 12 segment here in a second, but day one of camp was today at beautiful, historic Nippert Stadium, an absolutely perfect August day. I've been to a lot of day ones of camp that made you feel like you lost 45 pounds just standing on the turf. Today was picture perfect. It was delightful. So we have a lot to get to there. Realignment. The last 3 hours have been bananas.
It's a good thing we have a realignment expert on the payroll.
It is. Is he going to be available tonight? We didn't plan for him tonight.
I don't think so. So. I think he's pretty busy.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot going on the realignment front. So I don't know if we'll hear from Dan Simon tonight or not. Maybe we can catch him before he hits the craps table tonight. But
yeah,
we'll see how that goes. And so much more. But first, let's start it off with our Team Ticker Big 12 segment. And something new right now, Dave, from Team Ticker. We will have the prototype in next week, but we're releasing a new design from Team Ticker. It's going to be just the C-Paw with the Team Ticker below it. As you can see, we've got the Bearcat right there. It's 6-7 minutes of all updated information that lets you know exactly what's going on in the world of UC sports. And they are adding to that with a C-Paw design that looks great. I can't wait to get the prototype in this week and get it displayed for you next week. It's the ultimate edition for anyone wanting to showcase their team pride. Custom graphics, easy to hang design, make it the perfect piece to display in your home, fan cave, game room, dorm room, or office. The digital LED display provides you with a unique way to stay connected to the latest team and player information. Get one for yourself and one as the perfect gift for that devoted Bearcats fan. Go to teamticker.com. And that brings us to, it's a lot. Like we're doing 4 minutes of freaking intros now. It's like a real podcast or something. I almost don't like all the advertising, Dave. It makes us feel legitimate, and I've never liked that. I don't want to be like, that's not who we are.
They're obviously giving us a ton of money for these spots. So.
Still too much money for you to run electricity to that little spot on your wall right there. But
yeah,
we haven't reached that status yet. But we are now joined by the publisher of the Kansas 24/7 site, Michael Swain. Michael, welcome. Sorry to make you wait that long. Your segment's almost over.
You guys are all good. All good. I love the dynamic you guys have going on. So thanks for having me on.
Usually when I do these things, I turn it over to Dave. Dave is the now Big 12 expert.
Well,
so, Dave, Michael Swain is yours. You have the floor.
We're getting there. I have a lot to learn. But I feel like I know at least one thing about Kansas, and that's Jalen Daniels is really damn good. And he had a really damn good season last year until he got hurt. And KU's second half of the year kind of torpedoed without him. With him back, potential to be Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. What are kind of some of the things that he's talked about, Lance Leipold has talked about, where he's working on his game to kind of take that next step. I mean, he's a dynamic guy, but they're always trying to get better. Where are the parts of his game that you think he can still improve the most in?
Well, I think for Jalen especially, it goes to the moment against TCU, right where he gets hurt, where he's scrambling to his right, gets tackled out of bounds and separates his shoulder. That really has been the moment for him that's kind of drove him this offseason. And so the things he's talked about that he wants to get better at is scrambling in the pocket, being more athletic, being able to avoid a play like that where maybe he has the athleticism to outrun that defensive lineman that's chasing after him, getting to the sideline or turn it upfield. And look, if you go back and watch the highlights last year, you'll see how dynamic Jalen Daniels is as a quarterback, right? He's a dual threat. I mean, there was a point, I believe, in week 4 where he had the highest ESPN total QBR in history, like higher than Cam Newton, higher than Mac Jones. Like he was playing at such a high level. And then the injury happens, right? And I think that for him has been kind of the moment where I think he realizes the trajectory he was on. And I think he wants to get back there. And I think that's one of the big things he's worked on is being more mobile. But also what he's talked about too is being bulletproof, where you look at him coming into camp this year and he looks different than he did last year. And I think this time last year, we were talking about how different he looked than the year before. And so I think this is just kind of the natural progression you get to see in college football where guys grow up, right? Jalen was a 17-year-old true freshman back in 2020 playing, and he got obliterated all the time. I think like he was sacked 9 times in a game against Oklahoma in 2020. And then now you're at the point where you look at him now and you say, okay, this is the type of guy that looks physically like he can take the hits. And so for him, I think it's going to be about kind of taking that next step physically in terms of his athleticism, because you watch him, right? He's got the dual threat ability. He's got the arm talent to make some really high level elite throws. And now it's kind of just about putting it all together and making sure that he can stay on the field to really maximize what Kansas can do.
When teams have been able to get him off his game, what is the way that they, kind of slow him down? Is it pressure in his face? Is it just having sticky corners? Like, UC's defense and especially their defensive line should be pretty good this year. Mm-hmm. What is the formula that you would say, most affects him, as a passer? Because I mean, he's going to make plays as a runner. We know that, but like in the structure of the play, what are the ways that teams have affected him the most?
Well, in order to do that right, I think you have to stop the run first and foremost, because so much of Kansas' success last year, especially early in the season, right? They ran the ball so well with kind of their triple option offense and it's probably more modern triple option, right? I think you say that and people think like Army. It's a little bit different than that though. And I think what teams like Iowa State did is they really stopped the run. And if all of a sudden you're making Jalen Daniels a 3rd and 9 quarterback, he's got the arm talent, but look, Kansas at wide receiver does not have NFL guys. They've got good college players, but not guys that are going to go on to play professionally in the National Football League. And so what teams have been able to do is when they stop the run, they force Kansas to be in predictable passing situations. And then a guy like Jalen Daniels can't really flash that ability because so much of what Kansas does is misdirection. That comes in the run game. That also comes in the pass game, whether it be through play action or using defenders' eyes against them. So I just think overall, I look at what opposing teams do. It's really going to start stopping the run, because if you can make Kansas a one-dimensional offense, Jalen Daniels doesn't have the dudes to go out and make spectacular plays if he can put the ball in the right spot. So I think for so much of slowing Jalen, it comes from really kind of limiting what he can do and how versatile he can be.
I would say for UC fans listening, their offense or their run game, I'm not going to say it's exactly the same, but it's pretty similar to how Tulane runs their, like you said, it's not really triple option, but it's like a shotgun triple option type, a lot of movement, a lot of pre-snap stuff. And that was going to kind of take me to my next question. Offensively, KU is a lot of fun to watch. What do they do that kind of makes them so hard to defend?
Well, so much of it is about eye discipline. And I think what helped Kansas a lot last year was early in the season, teams did not know that this is what the offense was going to look like. And I look at the offense this year and say, okay, teams know generally what Kansas did last year. Now, what type of wrinkles can they put in this year? And so much last year was getting 6 yards on first down. So then it's 2nd and 4. And I think Andy Kotelnicki is so smart in drawing up plays that on 2nd and 4, he's got a whole playbook in front of him he can pick from. And so I think so much of what they do is really putting pressure, not on the defensive line, but on really the second level, whether that be the linebackers, the corners, and the safeties, to make the right reads, fill the right gaps, be in the right spots. And I think that it puts so much pressure on them mentally that you have to be on for all 60, 70, 80 snaps, depending on how many snaps, the offense is out there. That defense has to be locked in mentally. And I think that's really strenuous on a team that over the course of the game, they're going to make mistakes. And I think that's what made Kansas so lethal last year, is that when teams made mistakes, they were able to capitalize. And so I look at the offense and say, you have to be on your game mentally that week against Kansas, or else you're going to get a lot of busted plays and guys are going to be running wide open and they're going to score a lot of points.
Running back Devin Neal, quarterback Jalen Daniels, probably the premier running back quarterback combo in the conference. Who else offensively, skill position wise, are you guys looking at this year to kind of complement what they do and make sure that the offense kind of stays at least where it was last year before Daniels got hurt?
Yeah, I think you have to look at Daniel Hishaw as being kind of a key player here, running back. You look last season, his story's crazy. So he was a quarterback in high school. He gets to Kansas, plays as a freshman in 2020 and performs really well. I think he was KU's leading rusher that season. And then before the 2021 season, he dislocates his hip. And so he's done for this season. And then last year, he was KU's leading all-purpose yard leader, whether, combining rushing yards and receiving yards. And then against Iowa State there in week 5, he dislocates his same hip again. And he's done for the season. And you look at him, KU is so dynamic with Hishaw and Neal because Hishaw is a physical back. He's going to plow people over. He's hard to tackle. And then you get Devin Neal. He's more of an all-around type of running back who maybe is a little bit faster, can catch out of the backfield as well. And those two created such a great tandem for KU. And the running game is so important for what they want to do offensively that he's a really key piece. I mean, you look at wide receiver, not a lot of guys are going to really flash on Saturdays, but they're going to make good plays. They're going to be open and they're going to catch the ball. Kansas had, I believe, 5 drop passes all of last season. They're very, very fundamentally sound at the wide receiver position. They're guys that they've got, tall guys that can catch, like Lawrence Arnold, right? Kind of a 50-50 ball guy. They got Quentin Skinner, number 0. He's going to kind of blow the top off of the defense, but he's 6'5". And they've got a guy underneath, Luke Grimm, who probably in terms of route running is the best route runner on the team. And so you look at the wide receivers, again, not flashy, but they're not going to make mistakes. And then at tight end, you've got guys like Mason Fairchild and Jared Casey, who, again, are kind of fit the mold of Kansas, right? They don't play bad football, which feels weird saying that, right? After covering the Kansas program for so long, they don't play bad football. But I just think overall this offense just does such a good job of limiting the amount of bad plays where you look and say, what in the world was that? And I think that really helps them put together, I think, some really quality drives. So I think I threw a lot of names at you, but they return a lot of guys. So I think there are a lot of guys that fans have to know.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna get to that in one of my later questions. According to Bill Connolly, they're number 1 in returning production. So, yeah, they're going to have a lot of guys that are familiar with the system and should be able to step into the season and get running right away. Talking Bill Connolly a little bit more, SP plus. I don't know if I've ever seen a variance this big where an offense was 31st and a defense was 106th. How does Kansas bring that defense number to even just something respectable? Because I think if it gets in the 60s or 70s with what the offense can do, they're a totally different team. So where do they go? I mean, obviously you can say like they can't get any worse, but how do they go from 106 to helping out the offense a lot more?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in offense is about coaching and defense is about talent. And KU's just had a talent issue. And it really starts in the trenches. We talked to Brian Borland, defensive coordinator, today for fall camp, and he's always very honest and retrospective during camp, and I really appreciate that. He made a really good point. The guys last year that were playing in the trenches for KU, really good humans, great culture guys, not high ceiling college football players. And that's okay at some point, but they have to improve. And I think what you've seen them do this offseason is really upgrade the athleticism at the defensive line spot, defensive tackle especially. They lose their top 3 guys from last year, but I think they really added guys that are high ceiling players. Devin Phillips is a transfer from Colorado State. He's 6'2", about 325 pounds, but he's someone that in terms of the ability to bend and get around, double teams and an offensive lineman, he's really important there. And then someone like Gage Keys from Minnesota. He's about 6'5", 290 pounds right now, but he's got a vertical jump that's in the mid-30s. He's a guy that can run a 40 in the low 4.6s. He's a great athlete. And so I look at the defensive tackle spot for Kansas, and I think they'll be better there. I think that's where some improvement will come. Defensive end on the strong side, Jeremy Robinson last year, or really the last 2 years, has outproduced the starter while playing backup snaps. And so for him now, it's about, can he translate that production to being the starter? The big worry for KU is the weak side defensive end spot, kind of their rush end. They lost Lonnie Phelps, and they're really struggling to find who can fill that role. And so they might be better at those 3 other spots, but almost I would say maybe one of the most key positions on the defense, right? A guy who can rush the passer, create pressure. They're really searching for that during camp. And then you look at kind of the back 7, right? The linebackers and corners and safeties, they return everyone. And I think KU's hoping that those guys being in the program, being in the scheme for another year will allow them to play more free and not think so much. And I think that is where they're hoping, is that the athleticism up front, more continuity on the back end will help the defense improve. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think that's where they're hoping.
You mentioned a couple of the portal guys on the defensive line. I assumed that, they would hit the portal hard defensively. Is there, are those kind of the 2 main guys, or is there anybody else, whether it's portal or just reserves from last year, that you think are going to be counted on to take on a much bigger role?
Yeah, so I think I named 2 of them, right? So Gage Keys and Devin Phillips. I look at Austin Booker and Dylan Brooks. Those are 2 defensive end transfers. Booker came from Minnesota. Brooks came from Auburn. 2 guys who are different type of defensive ends that Kansas has had. The question is, they've not played a lot of college football, right? This will be their first season where they're going to be relied upon in the rotation. How does that growing process look, right? Are there a ton of growing pains? Are they able to hit the ground running? Those are 2 guys that if they are able to reach their ceiling, they're difference makers for Kansas. They're guys that can change games. It's just a question of, is that going to come this year? Or are we really looking at that happening in 2024? That's a whole different conversation. And then you look at linebacker. KU needed to get more athletic. They lost 2 guys last year, Lorenzo McCaskill and Eric Gilliard. They're kind of stiff. They're more physical players, but Kansas need to be more athletic. And so they got a guy, J.B. Brown from Bowling Green, super athletic players, really flashed in spring practice. He's strong, can squat 600 pounds. He's the type of guy that will start the season probably as a backup, but he's going to be the first linebacker off the bench for KU. And so I think those are probably the big transfer portal guys. I think one more guy I'll mention is Tommy Dunn. On the interior, he was a redshirt freshman last year. He played about 15 snaps a game. But if Cincinnati fans want to go watch the bowl game for KU against Arkansas, go to the second half and watch Tommy Dunn. He takes on double teams against the SEC offensive line, holds his own, and a couple times dominates those guys and pushes them back into the backfield. He's the type of guy that I think this year for Kansas, now being a redshirt sophomore, is really going to be expected to make the leap. And I think he's going to start the season. And so I look at him and I say, he's the type of guy that can have a breakout season as well.
So we mentioned the number 1 in the country in returning production, the offensive firepower, but also the defensive questions. Then you add in a really tough schedule. They're the only team in the Big 12 that has to play Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas State. What are kind of the expectations in Lawrence this year when you kind of add all that together?
Well, it depends on who you ask, right? Are you going to ask coaches? You're going to ask, people
Right.
like myself who covered the team, or you're going to ask fans. Fans think 7 wins, 6, 7 wins. I think they could be a better team this year overall and win 5 games. I look at the schedule, and for me, the Illinois game in week 2 really decides the season, because you're looking at the schedule, and you mentioned it, right? They play K-State. They've not beat K-State in I think something like a decade now. Oklahoma, Texas, those games are going to be tough. And you look at the rest of the Big 12 schedule, Okay, they're at home to UCF and BYU, but look, going to play Cincinnati at the end of year one for Satterfield, that's not going to be an easy game. That's a game they very well could lose. And you're looking at now maybe Iowa State being a winnable game, but you're just looking at, I think 4 wins is guaranteed. I think 5 wins is likely, and getting that 6th win could be tough. So I really look at the Vegas over under. I think 5.5 is probably the right one. I've seen 6.5 out there. If it's 6.5, I take the under just because I feel like 6 wins is where they're going to end up. I just think they're going to do it again where they'll start the season. I think they will beat Illinois. I think they'll start the season pretty well. And then it's going to be a question of, can they stay healthy? Can they get some of those 50-50 games, right? Can they maybe beat Cincinnati on the road last game of the season? Could they maybe go on the road and give Oklahoma State a shot? We don't know how good Oklahoma State's going to be this year, right? So I look at the schedule. There's so many coin flip games, and KU was on the right side of a couple coin flip games last year. I look at, West Virginia being one of those. I look at the Iowa State game being one of those.
I remember watching the Iowa State game
one.
All
I've
the
never seen a
field
kicker.
goals they missed.
Oh,
yeah.
That's one of those, like, I remember watching that game in the press box and just leaving being like, what the heck did I just watch?
Yeah.
Like, KU had no right to win that game, and they did, right? Credit to them. The other guy missed the kicks. They scored more points in the end. But I look at this team, and I think generally they could be a better team this year and not win as many games as last year. And I think KU fans especially, I think, have to be mentally prepared for that to happen, which I think, too, you're talking about 5 wins for a Kansas team that'd be the second time they've done that in the last decade. I still think that's a good sign of progress, and at least building consistency towards being a consistent bowl team.
So with the new teams coming in to the conference, we're obviously not going to go to KU this year for football. I think we are for basketball, but from a football standpoint, what are, hopefully next year when we come out there, what are some things that UC fans could look forward to? And then obviously Kansas State, interstate rival, but who else do KU fans, I guess I should say, I know the answer is Texas, since they somehow seem to beat them no matter what's going on, but who is KU look forward to playing every year outside of Kansas State?
Yeah, I think Texas is more of for meme purposes.
Right.
And needling. I think KU fans really love needling Texas fans just because it's ridiculous. Right. They should. I agree, Chad. They should. I think that's funny. I think Iowa State's one that I think is Iowa State's recruited Kansas City pretty well. And I think that's developed into one where I think Campbell and Leipold have a lot of respect for each other. But I think those two programs, in terms of the fan bases, like to kind of needle and bicker a little bit. I think UCF might have beef with everybody by the end of this season.
Funny, have you started to notice? Have you started to catch on?
I noticed pretty quick. I still follow some fan accounts and stuff, and I see some people beefing with UCF fans. But honestly, I think for so long, right, KU football has kind of just been beaten down. So it's not many long-standing rivalries. So I think it's really Kansas State, Texas. They love to needle. And then it's really Iowa State. And then outside of that, I think you'll kind of see if there are chippy moments in some of these games with teams now. Maybe that'll help spark some more rivalries, which I'm all for. I love it. I love when teams don't like each other, and it really translates to the game, because I think those games are more fun to watch because it's more intense. Players got more to play for, right? It's pride and all that stuff. So as for what fans can look forward to going to Lawrence, it's a different tailgating scene at KU. The way that, we'll also got to think about the stadium here. It's going to be under construction, I think, when Cincinnati fans come next year, if that's the way the schedule plays out. But the tailgating scene is really cool. So there's a hill on campus that kind of leads into the football stadium, and it's a really cool view. You can kind of sit there, you look into the stadium, you see the whole thing. It's really cool. And then there's a kind of a neighborhood right behind the stadium where there are a lot of parking lots, and people just go park in each other's driveways and tailgate. So it's a really cool kind of family atmosphere around the stadium. But Lawrence itself, I think if fans haven't been, I think they'll be surprised to see what it's like. I think fans, you hear Kansas and you think flat, and KU's up on the top of a hill, and I think it's a pretty beautiful campus. So I think Cincinnati fans would definitely enjoy getting to see a game at KU.
Are you going to
Kansas
be
fans,
oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I was going to say, are Kansas fans excited to come to Nippert in November or December?
I think
Late
so.
November.
I think the one, obviously you're talking, Thanksgiving weekend. So I think that's going to be tough, but the fans I've talked to, at least that are the ones that travel, I think are really excited. And I think there's a good amount of KU alumni that are in Cincinnati, at least compared to some of the other cities that KU could be going to of the new Big 12 team. So I'm interested to see what the KU turnout's going to be like. If it's a good season for KU, I think it could be a good showing.
Well, if you
coming?
make the trip, get
Oh, yeah.
in touch with us, and you can. Well, we got the tailgate pregame, so
Love it.
more than welcome to stop by, and I'm sure we'll give you a call again as we get closer to the game to preview. Since it's the last game of the year, we'll see how these two teams have made their way through the Big 12 schedule.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, we're here right now in early August, and we're going to blink and it's going to be Thanksgiving where we talk about the game again. So I'm looking forward to it.
What's your opinion on Jello shots?
I had a couple when I was in college, and so I'm not against it.
If you want to come to the tailgate, you're going to have a couple more.
the Simone family treats Jello shots like water. So it's like, hey, do you want a water to hydrate? It's like, hey, you want 4 Jello shots to hydrate? Yeah, those sound good.
Yep.
I love it. Yep. Yeah, KU's tailgating scene isn't as much of Jello shots. It's a lot more barbecue and
I don't think anybody else at Cincinnati is either, but the Simone family holds them dear.
There we go. I love it.
I got a fridge full of them right now.
For what?
Just you never know when you're going to need them.
Just Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Michael, thank you for coming on and joining the craziness that is the BCJ podcast. We love developing friendships that we're finding across the conference, and you jump right to the top of the list, and we appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Tell real quick, Michael. Tell everybody where they can get your work.
Yeah, definitely. If you go to phog.net, that's phog.net, or you can just type in Kansas 247. You'll be able to find it all, and make sure you're checking in throughout camp and into the season.
You guys ignored my question. I just want to know who has better drips, Sauce Gardner or Jalen McDaniels with his new Apple Watch chain?
You don't want to know my answer because I mean the Apple Watch in the chain is running your highlights on repeat is pretty damn awesome.
I agree.
It's pretty sweet.
I agree.
I mean, Sauce's chain
having actual
sauce. I know they're both sweet, but I mean, I think it's pretty bad. You got your own highlights on your chain,
especially at a place like Big 12 Media Days when you're around everyone else, right? Everyone in the conference gets to see your highlight chain and the suit. I think, look, credit to him, right? Jalen's got a lot of confidence, and I think that rubs off on the team. And I think they would have loved seeing that on social media.
Do you live in Lawrence?
I actually live in Overland Park, so I'm probably about 30 minutes away.
Okay.
Going to school there, I was like, I think I'm ready for not living in a college town anymore.
So I think we are going to rent a bus and bring the entire Bearcat Journal crew to the Phog this winter. So be ready.
You guys will love it. It's so
you
cool.
You might have to get a hotel room that night. Let's say.
You can show us around town.
That sounds like a plan. Yeah, you guys should let me know.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Michael.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys. We'll talk again soon, all right?
All right. Thank you. There you go. That was the team ticker, Big 12 look ahead. As we're checking them off pretty good, Dave. I know.
Hey, we have hit all of the original Big 12 teams that UC is playing this season. And it is just very refreshing to be able to tweet someone that covers a team that responds pretty much instantly, who actually knows what the hell they're talking about. I mean, this is a wild west of college football.
All right, well, let's get to another sponsor segment, and this time a special sponsor segment as we bring on the Turtle. Bruce.
Hi. How you doing, guys?
Brew. This is the Turtle from Turtle's Brew. What's going on, man?
Well, I'm gonna step out real quick because I got to go prepare my beverages.
Yes, I think we sent you samples, didn't we?
Yeah, Dave got samples. I unfortunately we just missed each other earlier today for me to get a couple, but I have to behave tonight. I'm hosting Cincy 360 tomorrow at noon on ESPN 1530. So I need to behave. I try to be as responsible as possible. I'm not very good at it, but I try.
Yeah, I know.
Bruce, you're the guy. You're the
I'm
turtle.
the guy.
Tell us about Turtles Brew.
So so what happened was a couple of years ago, about 2 years ago, I was told by the doctor I needed to drop some weight and bring my A1C down, and stuff. So I said, well, as long as I don't have to give up beer. And she's like, well, that's the number one carbohydrate in your diet, apparently, and going on and on.
No.
And I go, so what do I do, Doc? I need to relax a little. She's like, well, go to distilled liquors like bourbon or vodka. I go, whoa, I love bourbon. So you're telling me you're going to give me a doctor's note? I drink bourbon now? And
Drink
she's
less
like,
beer, more bourbon, Turtle.
right. And she goes, I'm not going to write you a note. I go, well, I'm going to tell my wife you said I got a doctor's note. So that first Sunday, when you drink your bourbon like you drink your beer at 2:00 in the afternoon, it ain't a good thing at dinner when everything's burnt. You're sitting across the table. And my wife's there, and she's like with a little finger waving at me. What's going on? What is this? I go, I got a doctor's note. I'm drinking bourbon now. She goes, well, let me just tell you, this happens again, you're going to need a damn coroner's note. So I'm like, I got it. Got your point. I see what you're saying. I said, so I'll mix it. Well, I mixed it with some very popular diet sodas, and that was terrible. It just melted terrible.
Soda. Hate it.
And then, it was terrible. And then, so I was like, my buddy says, oh, try sweet tea. I'm trying to get rid of the sugar, man. He goes, well, get the diet side. And I did, but that was all right. But I was missing my old fashions and my Manhattans, a little bit of flavor in it. Once in a while you spice it up with an orange twist or a maraschino cherry, or some sweet vermouth, just a nice drink. So I started making these dietary teas with my dietary sweetener and all my flavorings. And the next thing you know, there we are. I got a jug at my buddy's house, and it's got turtles written on it, and everybody's wanting to try it. Next thing you know, the jug's gone, and I got nothing to drink. And I got to go to water, beer, and I'm like, wait, this isn't what it's supposed to be. This is diet stuff, guys. Leave it alone.
That's mine.
Right. They loved it so much. We turned it into this. Me and my partner have very, very good partners. One of them is Gary. I think Dave met him. He's got a very good nose for flavorings and stuff, and has really been instrumental in helping us develop our brand and stuff. But yeah, it's now I'm on keto and stuff, so I've dropped in 7 months when I switched from no beer, just my product. Dropped my A1C from 8.2 to 6.2, and changing my diet. No working out, no walking, no running, no nothing. Just simply things I put in my mouth, and I've dropped 60 pounds.
There you go.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was like, and I'm never hungry, which I really love food, and it kind of makes me upset. So, but I still get to drink my stuff now. It's only 6%, and it's gluten-free, and 85 calories for 12 ounces, guys. And, and so like, hey, I'm keeping my calorie count down now too.
Gluten-free, like we are the gluten-free network. Like Galactic Fried Chicken is gluten-free. Turtles Brew is gluten-free. Like this is by accident. But if you're gluten-free, like we're for you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love you guys. I'm telling you, Dave, did you get yourself a drink?
Yeah, so I got all the flavors, but I pulled a couple out. I got the orange vanilla.
Yep.
And the lemonade tea. So I'm gonna.
That's what they come in.
Pour them over ice. No, those are sample bottles.
These are like the sample bottles.
Right now they come in 1.8 gallon tea jugs.
So I got
like half gallon of milk, half gallon tea.
Smells nice. So I'm starting with the orange vanilla.
Vanilla. Yeah, that's my old fashioned replacement.
All right, that I could get on that.
Yeah, you're not going to taste too much tea, not too much sweetener.
That's the thing. I do not like tea, but that is pretty darn good. And now we'll try
and then the same
lemonade
with the bourbon.
one.
We got the bourbon at the right amount, so you don't taste it.
Ooh,
you don't taste it.
I think I like the lemonade tea. That one's
good.
Palmer?
Yeah. So
Kinda,
it's
yeah, I
it's
mean-
it's like a John Daly with bourbon. You know,
Yeah,
that's
just
what they call
subbing
the
out
Arnold
the
Palmer with alcohol.
yeah.
It's a John Daly. So,
Those
but
those could be dangerous because you really don't get like a bourbon bite or
right.
any
The
burn
girl,
from it. So
the girls, we have a very large following of women who don't normally like bourbon. Like 60% of our market are women,
Yeah.
and the raspberry peach that we have there, they absolutely
Mm-hmm.
love that. And I got a new one coming out. My partner gave me the idea for, and we got it together. Strawberry mint, and it's wow, yeah, it's sweeter tasting because of the strawberry, and the big thing is like, oh yeah, I could get into this. It's one of those drinks where you keep drinking, you don't realize there's alcohol, and next thing you know, you're like, wow, this is awesome.
Because I'm not a huge bourbon guy, but it's not discernible. Like you can someone that drinks a little bit of everything. You don't need to be a bourbon aficionado, and you'll like this.
And if you want more bourbon, you just pour it in. That's the beauty of it. I gave you the mixer already.
No,
you're gonna have to save some for Chad, or we'll have to send him.
I got a fridge full, but I don't know the next time I'm going to see him. They'll probably be gone by then.
Don't try to make
Gary soon. Trust me.
Don't try to make Jello shots out of them, though.
No.
Can you?
Yeah, I guess you mix it with Jello. It'd be only 6%, though. You'd probably eat a whole tray and not get drunk.
You could do bourbon. Add some. If you're going to do the Jello shots, add bourbon.
Right. Oh yeah, I love. Yeah, I mean, bourbon on ice cream's even good. I mean, did I say that out loud? My wife's not around, right?
Turtle, are you a big UC guy?
Yeah. So I go down to the Bearcat games quite often. Some of the Gaduli, his dad and I were really good friends. And
Dave's one of the best humans ever.
Oh.
Dave and I go way back, right? And so yeah, I've been coming down to UC since I was a kid. That's what we do. You support your hometown teams and stuff, and that's what we do.
How do they find Turtles Brew? And I want to. This has only been like a 7-month thing.
Yeah,
like you guys are only 7 months in on this, and you have this much momentum.
Yeah, we're it's really going good. It's all based on having a good product, and then a good message is that you can drink and sort of be healthy, if you're going to drink, and not have to worry about it. But having a good product that people actually love the taste and get. We're in like 50 locations around Cincinnati. If you go to turtlesbrew.com, we have a locations map there. And you can click on it, and it'll show you everywhere in Ohio. We're up in Columbus, and we're also in Toledo, and we're expanding every day.
I'm by a location tomorrow when I do radio, so I might have to stop and just grab some while I'm there between now and meeting up with Gary. Yeah,
get yourself some. I'll tell you, you won't be disappointed. It's funny is when we first went to market with some of the retailers were like, I don't know, it's not like in cans. And now they're coming in buying 2 and 3 half gallons at a time. I go, well, they're loading up for the weekend. So
Dave is picky. Dave is someone that is not he's set in his ways. He's stubborn as hell. If he continues to go back to that cup and shake his head, yes, you've got a damn good product.
Thank you.
Bruce, I'd be honest with you. If it sucked, I'd tell you.
Right. And I tell people feedback is important to me because we all have different taste in things.
Because you have someone here that doesn't really drink bourbon and doesn't drink tea that is telling you that it's good.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. So I knew I was right in not making anything stand out in particular, and just make a nice mellow sipper that you can just drink. And I put it in a big Yeti, and my wife goes, "You try to cut the grass more now since you created that drink than you ever had." I go, well, before the beer would get warm out there on the thing and all foamy, and now this kind of just sits right in the cup, and I can go on with it.
You're like you're like the guy from the Duck Hunter guys.
Oh yeah,
had the tea. You're like
Yeah.
him, but with Turtles Brew.
Oh, Uncle Si.
Yeah, you're just like him, but with Turtles Brew.
Yep, Silas. He's a funny. I love that guy. Yeah. He carries around the old school sweet tea jug and the original Tupperware cups.
I love it.
Now I'm dating myself, but yeah, those old cups, I remember them things.
So where can people find? I see you got logos on here for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Yep. We're all over the social media, at turtlesbrew.com or at turtlesbrew for all the social media. Tag us, like us, go out there, check it out. Like I said, we're all over Cincinnati and East Side, Anderson. ATP is one of the bars. We're in the Montgomery Inn, Boathouse. We're in Swampwater Grill. We're all over.
Swampwater Grill's good.
Yep. We're at Mio's down there on Short Vine.
That's one of our spots. That's
one of
our
Yep.
longtime friends.
You go to after practice and go to lunch.
Go get a Godfather.
And
Yep,
get a Turtles Brew with your Godfather.
We'll be over there. Hopefully, I think we're going to do. Aren't they doing closing Short Vine for every home game this year in football?
Yeah.
I'm hoping to be down there running a sample stand at Mio's right outside. So bringing the bourbon lovers tea to the masses and getting people to try it. And I think we are in that little Shell State, that BP right there, Jefferson, on the corner of Jefferson.
Yeah,
right there.
Well, I'll be there a lot too.
What's the retail price on these, Bruce?
$15.99. It comes in a half gallon. It's like half gallon, so it's a lot of drinks.
Beautiful.
And it's your average light beer is 4.2. Your all those other light beers are 4. This is 6%, so you're getting more alcohol and a better alcohol for it.
And you're drinking sweet tea and bourbon.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful.
Well, we love the partnership, man. We are excited to get this thing rolling. And
Definitely.
We're going to have to get some samples for the Simone family tailgate as well.
Hey, just holler and let me know where to drop them.
All right, man.
We'll be happy to come down there and show up and bring everything.
Love it, man. Look, like I said, I'm not kidding. Dave's a tough nut to crack. He will tell you straight. If it wasn't good, he'd have been like, that's not for me. But I've seen him have 5 extra sips as we've done 6.
So if you're I'm an old Sonic guy. I used to treat myself. The cherry lime came from the cherry lime slush.
All right.
And then a slowdown on the way home. There was an accident and traffic was stopped for a long time. And I just happened to hit the bourbon store next before as I at Jungle Jim's and I was like, I had some space open in the top. It was just calling my name and I tried it. All right. Next thing you know, wow, that's really good. Except for all the sugar was in it, but it was good.
Well, you're welcome to come on and talk Bearcats with us anytime, man. And
Thank you.
We are big fans of having you guys on board and looking forward to look. If you drink it, tag us, tag Turtles Brew at Turtles Brew. Let's start a movement like we did with Galactic. We didn't need to start a movement for Holy Grail. Everybody knew them. They don't need us.
Yes.
But let's start a movement with Turtles Brew. I want you guys to try it and let us know what you think.
Yep. So, give us your feedback.
Bruce, thank you, man. We appreciate it.
Thanh you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Turtle.
You guys have a good night.
You too, man.
You're the man behind the drink. Like, not kidding. You would have told that man straight to his face, that ain't for me.
I mean, I don't like either of those things.
How would that be as a tailgate drink?
It'd be great.
Dangerous?
Oh, for sure. For sure. Because you do like, I don't like bourbon, and you really don't pick up on the characteristics of, especially bad bourbon. Like, when you have a bad bourbon, you can feel it in your chest. And
right.
There's 3 or 4 different flavors. And
about to be 5 with the strawberry mint or whatever.
So, I would think if you could very easily, I think it'd be good when it's warm or good when it's hot because throw it on some ice. And it'd probably still be good as it gets colder. You could add a little bit more of your own bourbon to it, like you said, and have it warm you up a little bit, but you have a little bit of a mixer in there already.
All right. There you go. Well, I didn't know what to think. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, somebody tells you they're doing like a bourbon sweet tea. You don't know what to think.
Mm-hmm.
But it looks like we hit another home run. There you go. That's the Turtles Brew timestamp. Brought to you by Turtles Brew. So we're just crushing ad reads.
Just
And we have a new sponsor, Dave, to add to the list. And this is somebody that's been a sponsor in the past, somebody that we love working with, and somebody that is back in the fold all the way through December. You know who that is, Dave?
I do, because you told me. Home Field
Apparel. Home Field Apparel. They are a premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis. They have a commitment to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. They've got over 150 colleges to choose from, including the Cincinnati Bearcats. And here's my favorite part of this, Dave. As part of this home field partnership, if you go to homefield.com and make a purchase and you enter BCJ23, you get a discount. You get 15%. I believe it's 15% off. Let me see. They didn't have
Excellent.
that.
Well, they had I believe it. I don't think it was last week. Maybe 2 weeks ago. The days are running together.
Yeah, 15%.
But they had a 1 day buy one get one half off sale on UC stuff that I tweeted out. So hopefully people saw that and took advantage of that. I mean, the apparel's phenomenal. I have UC stuff. I have Tennessee stuff. Rachel has Michigan State stuff. It's great. You know, for anybody that loves the retro logos, I love all the other schools as long as they're not like super, rivals or competitors of UC.
Yeah, like I did a one that when they were doing the mystery shipments and they were just sending out like all kinds of stuff. I told them they owed me. I think they owed off a deal. They owed me like $200, and I was just like, send me a couple mystery packs and we'll be good. And they were like, any like requests? And I said, if you send me Xavier, I will burn all of it. But anything but Xavier, and we're good. So yeah, I think I got the School of Mines. That
Colorado
was an awesome
School
one.
of Mines. Yep.
Yeah, I got a Wisconsin one, ironically.
Yeah.
I got a UCLA hoodie for Kelly and Kelsey. Because they both, they love to support Mick because Mick's been awesome to our family over the years. So yeah, we have a ton. I got a Florida Gator one.
Do you think they're going to have any retro Pac-12 stuff soon?
Maybe. Like it might all be retro. We'll get to that in a little bit. But 15% off. You enter BCJ23 on your first order. You can't do this 20 times, but on your first order, enter BCJ23, and you will get your discount of 15%. Look, and they've got the joggers now. They've got hoodies. They've got crew necks. They've got quarter zips. And Aaron will attest, the gray hoodie is the best hoodie I've ever. It's the most comfortable hoodie I've ever owned. So, and I've owned a lot of hoodies. I'm an old fat hoodie.
It's super
guy.
soft. Yeah, the crew neck and the hoodie are both super soft. I'm jealous that you have the joggers.
I spent a lot. Those were not gifts from Home Field.
I don't mean to interrupt.
I wanted those so bad.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I have breaking news.
Okay.
Just posted by Ross Dallinger. Arizona Board of Regents has announced a meeting Thursday night, as in tonight. Here's the agenda. A, pursuant to whatever numbers and letters, and for a review of assignments for Arizona State University President Michael Crow and the University of Arizona President Robert Robbins. B, pursuant to, again, a bunch of numbers and letters, for possible legal advice and discussion regarding university athletics.
Arizona and Arizona State are going to the Big 12, boys and girls.
Today's Wednesday, not Thursday.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
See, I just said I'm getting all my days mixed up. So tomorrow.
I'm here to help.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. But anyway, yeah. I don't really think you'd have a meeting like that with the two school presidents talking about athletics on August 2nd if something wasn't going on.
You wouldn't think.
No.
I mean, Jason Shears. We're gonna do the camp stuff.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But home
That
field.
the home field read is for camp updates.
It's for camp. So
for the foreseeable future.
Day one camp. You were there. First impression. I hate asking the talk about or tell me about, but like first impressions. Day one. Fall camp. What jumped out to you today?
I think the wide receiver room is going to be okay.
Okay, good.
I think the wide receiver room is going to be okay. So you guys know I was limited in the spring, but one of the things I gathered from the spring was that I thought D. Wiggins and Donovan Ollie were pretty good. Braden Smith was outstanding today. Scott Satterfield said, he had the knee injury in 2021 and played last year, but never really looked, like the guy that he was coming off the knee injury. I think Keegan underlined his name like 6 times today.
Yeah.
During practice. I mean, he just kept making plays. And it's what Satterfield mentioned in the post-practice video. Like, he understood. You could tell he had a feel for where there was going to be gaps in the defense, what spot he needed to be in, what space he needed to run across to present himself. And then he made the cut, and he made the catch, and he made a play. And he was really impressive. D. Wiggins was the guy that we saw in the spring. He was very good. And Donovan Ollie made, I think, 3 or 4 really, really nice catches, big plays as well. So if those are your top 3 guys, I feel pretty good. And then you're going to have Xavier Henderson, who is still getting up to speed. And remember, Braden Smith is going to have a decided advantage, having already played in this system. So Xavier Henderson is going to have to work his way up into the mix as he gets going and compete with Donovan Ollie for that other outside spot. I think D. Wiggins is a starter.
But I mean, if you feel good about I don't know the levels that we feel good about, but like if you feel pretty good about D. Wiggins, Donovan Ollie,
I feel at ease that the wide receiver room is going to be okay.
That's what I'm getting at. Like if you feel pretty good about D. Wiggins and Donovan Ollie, and we feel like Xavier Henderson will at some point show, similar to what he did last year at Florida. And then you have a slot guy that kind of can step in, understands the system, is healthy. I mean, there's 4 quality wide receivers. Obviously you need more, but that is at least a good baseline to then hopefully you bring in, Chris Scott continues the progress he's made. Aaron Turner is a guy in the slot with maybe Barry Jackson, so you feel good about that group. And then I'd say you'd be looking at like who else is going to step up on the outside, but at least hopefully, again, no pads, nobody's, it's day one, but it seems like it's trending to a spot that it's not like this just barren wasteland of guys that just can't play at this level.
I mean, we've seen that, right? We lived it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to do some. Anyhow, I'm back.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen guys that can't get open. We at least know what that looks like.
And here's the bright side of that, Dave. You have Evan Prater that we didn't talk about. You have, in terms of outside guys, you have Buckhalter, who's got potential. You've got Chris Scott that's been here for a while. So you have 3 guys that I feel pretty good about already, and then 3 more guys behind them that I think have a chance to be pretty good.
Right.
So it's remarkable what this recruiting department has done in a room where you need 12 guys typically to be effective. And they've got roughly 8, 9, 10 right now that you feel at least okay about.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not speaking out of turn that this offense and this philosophy is going to be run based.
Sure.
It's going to be
They're not throwing 40 times a game.
Scott said, I'm not going to say tempo, whatever, but like, it's going to be ball control. It's going to be run. It's going to be punt. It's going to be handed over to the defense. They're not going to be snapping the ball every 8 seconds where you need 15 wide receivers because you're running in and out and you're Tennessee or you're UCF or whatever. Like, you need, like you said, 7, 8 legit guys that you can count on. And it seems like, some probably need to step up more than others, and keep progressing. But I think those pieces are there, whether they're starters or backups. Like, you still need good backups. Like, you still need, you got to have guys. We know it. I mean, we're good. That's the thing. I mean, Coach Satterfield talked about it. Is he mentioned? I thought it was interesting. He mentioned yesterday about how, like, we're probably not going to see a lot of Dante in camp because we know what Dante can do. We need to find out what the 2s and the 3s can do, because that is where this season will be decided, in my opinion, is if guys get hurt and the 2s and the 3s are just not either ready or not capable to give you, I'm not going to say the same production because they're not starters for a reason. But if they're not able to give them adequate replacement production, then the season's going to get off track. So you've got to be able to find out what you have. 8 deep at receiver, 9 deep on the defensive line, same thing on the offensive line. Like, so that's the thing that this team and this roster is going to have to show, is that the starters might be fine, but when it's week 8, week 9, how many of those guys are out? How many of those guys are banged up? Do we have the necessary, fill-ins to not have a big drop-off?
I talked about that with I was on LW today with Rocky, and that's one of the things that we talked about is like the difference in being in a BCS, a Power 5, a BCS, like whatever, Power 4 tomorrow, whatever we're talking about. The difference is depth. Like, those teams have recruited at a higher level more consistently for a longer amount of time, and they have more sustainable depth. And so we're going to find that out as this thing goes along. And like, if we're being honest with each other, Dave, that's the concern about the receiver room, right? Like, a lot of these guys are talented, but what has held back their career has been injuries. We've seen it with D. Wiggins. We've seen it with Braden Smith. We've seen it with Xavier Henderson. I don't think Donovan Ollie has had any of those issues, but Chris Scott has been dinged up at times. Evan Prater was dinged up at quarterback. Like, these guys haven't exactly been the model of health. So that is my concern more than anything with that wide receiver room. But on Wednesday, they were healthy and they looked competent. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the biggest development for me of the day.
All right. Excellent. I really don't want to ask about offensive line, defensive line, because, like, I don't know
it
what
doesn't matter yet.
Right.
Like, I have names.
Yeah. I mean, you posted, like, for anybody that hasn't read, I'll just say, like, because that doesn't even necessarily matter. Like, the first group.
Sure.
Did anybody, just from what they were doing in drills or from a physical appearance, like, jump out to you, positively, negatively, however you want to say it, from an offensive line standpoint? Just because we have so many new parts, this is kind of the first real chance you've gotten to get eyes on DeAndre Buford. It looks like there's some switching going, some different positions from spring. So what is your first impressions of the offensive line as a whole from today?
Buford is small for a tackle at this level. Like, that's one of the things that jumps out at you when you see him. Like, he's listed at 6'3", 315. I like that 315 might have been what he was when he got here. He did not look 315 today. He certainly looked 6'3". When you're standing next to a bunch of guys that are 6'5", 6'6", Ethan Green,
right,
6'7". He does not have the traditional size that you would think of as a starting right tackle in the Big 12. I will be interested to see, especially, he's going to get Eric Phillips and Jawan Briggs and Malik Vann and Justin Watley. at times, all lined up over him. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles those type of guys. That one jumped out. That you see the 6'3", and then you see it next to guys that are bigger, and you're like, man, that is not what you think of when you think of like James Hudson and
right.
I
mean, it has to be it has to be a lean, and you're not gonna be able to tell this today, but it has to be a play from an athletic
technique
standpoint.
and athleticism,
like getting him outside, getting him on the move, like getting him in space where it's not as important to be that huge presence. It's more important to be able to get out, lead block in that regard, which they'll do obviously in this type of a running scheme, but you still need to be able to anchor and sit down and not get rocked back into the quarterback. So and height doesn't necessarily
No. You asked me a question, I answered it. That's how we do this, right?
But typically if you're not, you're on the shorter side, you're also going to have shorter arms. So
he does have long arms.
Okay.
So like he does, you can tell he's got a good wingspan. He does not look like a T-Rex out there. So I will give him that. But that more is, I think early, day one, day two, before the pads go on, like the early part of camp, I think you're watching and looking for things that you say, okay, I'm going to watch how this develops as we get to higher ground, as we get to day 7, day 9. Like when we're in the real grind of camp, how does a guy like that hold up? And so it's just something that's going to be on my list, like checklist of let's watch these things and see. Trevor Radosevich, I have a hard time believing eventually he's not going to be one of your top 5 guys.
Yeah.
And that's no knock on D'Artagnan Tinsley, who was at left guard today, who I think that's the most likely spot that Radosevich ends up. But I just that guy is savvy. He's a veteran. He's played a lot of snaps. He knows what he's doing. But like I said in the article today, or in the camp report today, it makes sense if he's going to be your backup center that you spend the early part of camp
getting him
time as the backup center.
Right.
Like getting him as many reps as you can at center, because I think the luxury with a veteran offensive lineman is that you can just say, okay, tomorrow you're at left guard. And he knows what that means, what that takes. So I understand it from that standpoint. And that maybe Tinsley's awesome. After we did the video on Monday, like I asked Satterfield about him off the camera, and he said he's had a great summer. Like he's really impressed us as a guy that's ready to be one of those top 6-7 guys on our offensive line. So that part of it makes sense. I just think Radosevich, I really liked what I had a chance to see from him in the spring. And I think he'll end up being one of the top 5 guys. But if he's not, you got a hell of a super sub at guard and center.
Yeah.
And that's invaluable as well.
Well, especially, I mean, we're concerned about the starters. So obviously you're going to be concerned about the depth. If he ends up being a depth piece, that it's going to come into play at some point. Like we're not going to go the whole year where Trevor Radosevich is the backup center and backup guard and just never sees the field. Like I find that extremely hard to believe. Flipping it over defensively, again, it's hard. They're not allowed to do anything. What, if anything, on that side of the ball caught your eye?
I'll just go through some of the names that I had that made plays today at defensive back. Raekwon Atkins made a play today. DJ Taylor made a couple plays today. Kellen Carroll made a couple plays today at corner. DJ Taylor at safety. Deion Hunter, who I forgot was on the roster, the transfer from New Mexico. Linebacker made a play down the field in coverage, had a pass breakup. Justin Harris had a pick on Emory Jones where it was a bad ball from Jones. He was trying to throw that deep, or not that deep, but that wide dig, that wide, out play to the sidelines. He didn't get enough on the throw, left it a little bit inside, and Justin Harris made the right play, made a pick. Sammy Anderson had a pass breakup, had a couple pass breakups. And Deshaun Pace had one that it was a tough play. He got outside and made a pass breakup in space on a slot receiver. I think it was either Braden Smith or Aaron Turner. By the way, Aaron Turner is not small and like shifty. He looks like a running back.
Okay.
Like that kid's got some build. He's small,
short,
but he's not small. He had pretty good sized shoulders, good sized upper body. I was pleasantly surprised. He looks like a scat back kind of that you play out of space. And that'll give them some versatility because that's kind of like having an extra back that you have out in, passing formations.
Yeah.
So, I thought the DBs were solid today. They didn't do a ton of team today. So there was a lot of one-on-one. So when you have to temper guys making plays in one-on-one because guess what happens? There's a snap every 6-7 seconds for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So if nobody's making plays, then you're in big trouble. So I try to dial back on some of the, I didn't give a bunch individual plays and stuff today just because they weren't doing a bunch of team stuff yet. There was a bunch of install, which Satterfield told us on Monday early in camp, we're going to hit install hard. And then we're going to let them kind of see where they're at as we get out to higher ground and we start moving forward to figure out if we have to go back and revisit or if we can continue with new stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was what we expected today in terms of what we were told. We're very big here on listen to what they tell you. They're going to tell us the truth until they don't. And what they told us was going to be the case of practice today is what we saw at practice today. So I liked it. I thought, again, same thing we talked about at the beginning of spring. The pace of practice is impressive. There's no wasted motion. There's no we're going to do this period for 14 minutes when it was scheduled for 10. When that whistle blows 10 minutes, it's time to go to the next thing. You can argue whether that's good or bad, I guess, depending on coaching philosophy from your couch. But that's kind of how Satterfield and company run things. He's a big hands during practice guy. Especially in the setting today, a lot of install. It was a lot of positional or unit stuff. He lets his guys do what he hired them to do. And then, like he said, after practice, they go up and watch tape, and then he cracks the whip based on what he sees on tape. But I like a coach that's willing to say, I hired you guys to teach these guys their positions. I'm not going to meddle.
Well, also, a lot of these guys he's coached with a long time. They better be able to run the practice without him standing over their shoulder and coming in and telling the players they need to be doing this instead of this, or having more emphasis on this element of it. So he's
and don't get me wrong, Luke did a lot of that as well. Luke was kind of the same similar way. Now he would go coach the linebackers a little bit more, or maybe get involved when they're doing defensive install a little bit more than we saw Sat today. But that's not to say that Sat won't be doing that. That we're also talking about how Luke was 5 and 6 years into his tenure here, as opposed to what he was, week one.
I think it's just commonplace. You're a first year head coach. You feel like you need to be involved. You need to be letting everybody know that this is the way it needs to be done. Where Sat has been a head coach for a decade plus or thereabouts. He's worked with a lot of these guys. Like, I'm pretty sure Brad Glenn knows what is to be expected from the wide receivers. Like, I don't think Scott is going to be over there, spending a ton of time coaching alongside him with the wide receivers.
Right. Offensive line, defensive line is always hard on day one. Running backs are always difficult on day one. I'll give a podcast exclusive here. I think Ethan Wright's going to be in the mix with Miles Montgomery and Corey Kiner. And Zach talked today about keeping him healthy.
Yep.
Which is critical because that has been a problem for Ethan. So maybe we don't see as heavy of a workload as early in camp, but he was right in there mixing in with the ones with Miles Montgomery and Corey Kiner. So he will have a chance to make that type of splash. What else you got? Any questions? Anything else for today?
I think it's just, it's not a lot that can be taken from today and projected. Like,
no, there were no position. Like, we're not far enough down the line that like all of a sudden you show up and like three guys are at new positions. And like that wasn't where we were at today. Like, you kind of had an idea at the end of spring and then you wait and see, okay, like, let me get an eye on some of the new guys. Oh, I did think he didn't do a ton today, but I like the look of Jabril White, the JUCO safety that they signed.
Yeah.
He looked like he fit in. He didn't look like out of place or not talented enough. Sometimes guys will show up and you'll be like, that ain't it.
Yeah, it ain't it.
That ain't it. That was not the case with him.
Did you get to talk? You get to talk to Nico?
Oh yeah. Nico came up, tapped me up, gave me a big hug.
That's like I gotta get out there so we can talk some food, some get the lowdown on some dudes.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best dudes I've ever met. So I getting to see him every day is going to be a lot of fun. He's giving me a little grief for agreeing to do radio tomorrow on day 2 of camp, but I'm a team guy, Dave.
That's what we got Keegan for.
Right, Keegan will be there.
So no, I think that's a good. And plus, you have a piece up about today. We got video up with Coach Satterfield, Jawan Briggs, Gavin Gerhardt, Mason Fletcher. Keegan's got a column up as well. Like for day one, there's plenty to digest of sights and sounds around Nippert Stadium.
Look, I say this every year, but I say it more confidently this year than any that we've ever had. There will be no one that produces more content and does more work than us for this camp. Like, we have the team right. Reagan will be out tomorrow. Keegan will be there. I know, you and when possible, Brent and Aaron are going to be in town. I'll be there every day, but there's maybe one where I think I have to take Kelsey to get a physical for sports. But other than that, like, I will be there every day. We are going to be on top of it and just crushing content throughout training camp. Like, I'm what would Wes say? I'm fired up.
Fired up.
How we're positioned to cover this camp.
Will you be fired up and email me the camp schedule?
I can do that.
Thank you. Just so I can see.
Find it.
Just so I can see how many of these I'll actually be able to attend. But yeah, I mean, we are 1 month, boys and girls. 1 month from today.
Yeah.
EKU, 3:30, Nippert Stadium. It's gonna go fast.
Yeah, that's always the thing. Is it's like, man, camp is a lot.
No season goes faster than college football season.
Yeah, because it's like it's anticipation, and then bang, and then anticipation, and then bang, and then like it's over.
Yep. So be looking forward to catching what Keegan has up tomorrow. Seeing what you guys have on Saturday.
He's gonna play my role tomorrow, and do the camp report.
I would hope so, since you won't be there.
Right. And camp report is like the number one priority. So he's going to do the camp report, and we'll get that to you guys. And then I'm sure there'll be video, and he'll get some interviews and some stuff like that. So worry not. Like you're going to be, if you're on the fence, if you're watching this and you're not a Bearcat Journal subscriber, right now,
75% off, right?
75% off. Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday at midnight, the deal is over. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, I'm telling you, you will get, it's like $26 for a year. You will get $26 worth of coverage just in camp, at camp alone. I can guarantee you that. So you'll get a whole year of stuff for like 3 weeks of coverage. So it's worth it. Go check it out. If you're listening to the podcast and you're on the fence, if you're watching the video, the vlog, whatever on YouTube, I can guarantee you, give it a try. It's like $2.44 a day or a month. And you'll get less than 10 cents a day. You'll get more UC content than your brain can handle. I promise. So just go to BearcatJournal.com. Click on join and join for a year, and you'll get the discounted price. And you can you can see exactly why so many of the UC fan base make us their home and why we become the best community on the internet.
I agree.
Don't believe what the haters tell you. I'm not mean. I might be mean.
You've certainly mellowed on the X.com of late.
I just don't care anymore.
Like, hey, you finally come over to, you finally listened to me say it enough times where I think it's finally just bled in.
Can we be honest? I think there was a lot of it over the past 5 or 6 years that I needed to yell at people.
For sure.
Like I couldn't yell at anybody here because of everything that was going on. I needed a place to yell at people. And now I just don't care. Like I don't care. If you don't agree, if you think I'm wrong, okay. My track record says that in the long run, I'm pretty good at this. So I don't need to argue with you about my accuracy anymore. I'm over it.
Let's talk a little recruiting.
All right.
Bearcats got a big one yesterday in
Yes.
Almost 4-star. I think ESPN has him as a 4-star. Everybody else in the composite world has him as a high 3-star. Running back Jason Patterson, Sneads, Florida. 2,700 yards last season. 13 yards a carry. Adds to a class that already has Ja'Cory. Wait, I'm going to forget it. I'm going to blank on his last name real quick. That's bad. Ja'Cory Caffey? Is that right? Coffee?
So,
Caffey?
Yeah.
But, 2 high-level, bigger backs, too. You're talking in the 200, one, who knows what the real numbers are. 195 to 205, somewhere in that range. Bigger high school running backs. Retweeted something today, where he shows off his speed. I mean, really, really good get. Beat out a final group that had Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Boston College, and Rutgers in it. If you're going to run the damn ball, you need some damn running backs. And, they got a couple guys here, Manny Covey in the last class. So really, really good get. Florida does their divisions weird. He plays in a Rule 1. So it's, I think the question is probably going to be the competition, but he shows all the athletic traits, all the running traits that you want to see from a running back, and I think it's a really, really, really good ad for an offense that, like I said, is gonna look to run a lot and run people over. We've talked about in the past, Scott Satterfield's offense the last 4 years, only team in the country to average over 200 yards rushing and 200 yards passing each of those 4 seasons.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he led Florida in rushing.
I mean, if he ran for 2,700 yards, I'd say he had a pretty good shot.
Yeah, I think he led Florida in rushing last year, like the entire state.
Yeah, so I mean, we have him as a 24/7 has him as a top 25 running back in the country.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yep. So, up to 20 high school commits. Who knows if there'll be more before the season. These guys are certainly always looking. Zach Grant, GM, was had some nice publicity today from 247, kind of like a 30 under 30, whether they're coaches or personnel guys. So there was some nice stuff about him today. So that group is really doing a good job. 2025, it's a lot of people, if you don't follow it super close, yesterday was the day that 2025s could be contacted by coaches. Up until then, it was the player, the recruit had to contact them, or the interaction had to be on campus. So yesterday was a barrage. I posted a lot of the Ohio ones that I saw on the board in a 2025 recruiting thread. Too many to just put all of them out there or retweet all of them. But tried to draw some attention to the locals. Some offers have gone out also the last couple of days to some 2025. So anymore, man, there's not really like a start and an end to each class cycle. It's just nonstop.
I was talking to a couple of the recruiting guys the past 2 or 3 days, and they were reiterating the same thing. That like, I was like, oh, like you got Patterson done. Not that they were allowed to comment on that, but hey, congratulations on that thing that didn't happen today. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like now camp starts. It used to be like camp started, the recruiting guys had at least a little bit of a window where they were good until like the football season started, and they started watching tape of guys that were playing high school football, and they're like, man, there's no chill, there's no stop, there's no break. It's all gas. Like somebody disconnected the brake line, and we just blast through the night like 24/7.
Well, yeah. Now that you have the junior official visits,
a
guy could take 5 official visits over the summer of going into his senior year or going into his junior year. And have a decision. We're seeing that. John Kitna's son committed to Houston yesterday. Like he's a 2025 quarterback. There's Chris Henry Jr. committed to Ohio State. He's a 2026 kid. Like there is not really like, I don't know when it kind of made the shift, but it felt like back, I'll use the cliche, back in the day, it felt like you really didn't truly start getting in on the next class until the class that was going to sign that next signing day was pretty much done.
Right.
And now they're all running congruent to each other now.
It's chaos. Like it legitimately is chaos the way that this is done now. More power to those guys, man. Like you talk about.
Well, and that's the thing. Like they're gonna the NCAA, whatever, they're going to have to come up with a way to have a more realistic calendar, because we've already seen it, and we're going to start seeing it more, where good coaches are not going to want to coach in college, and they're just going to want to coach ball, and they're going to make their way to the NFL.
Or they're going to drop down to high school and go, look, like if they're not NFL quality, they're just going to say, you know what? Like, I just want to coach ball. I'm going to go coach a high school team somewhere and make my $60,000 or whatever, get my teaching certificate, and like just be done with this.
It's just not a calendar and a schedule that's conducive to keeping good coaches, or around and wanting to keep progressing in your sport. When you literally don't get, like, they go on vacation, they're recruiting while they're on vacation. Like, there's no way they're just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna disconnect in July or late June, whatever, early July before camp starts.
During camps. Yeah, during camps. They're going to disconnect during camps.
Yeah, that doesn't happen. And like, they've got to figure out a way to clean the recruiting calendar up, where there's legitimately like long stretches of dead periods.
Who are the young guys in this business? The guys that work in the recruiting department.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
Guess what? They're getting slaughtered.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they're going home. They're 27, 28 years old. They're getting to work at 8 a.m. They're going home at 10 o'clock at night, and they're doing that 6.5 days a week. Like, they're in that window where an off day is a day where you only work 6 hours. Basketball is in the process of changing the recruiting calendar. But this is a lot deeper than what basketball is changing, is when the recruiting staff can be on the road. They're not changing recruiting. They're just changing what weeks on the calendar that they're out at AAU and summer high school events. Like, they're not changing that the transfer portal has consumed April. Like, April is just transfers. And part of May is just transfers. And then, the end of May into June and July is all summer recruiting. And then August, you get on-campus visits. You get to breathe because you're doing most everything on campus. But then once school starts back up, you're back coaching the team again. Like, it's relentless the way that the NCAA has set this up. It is relentless. You cannot escape it. And that's from talking to football and basketball guys that are dealing with this schedule. Like, I don't know how you could be, how much work it would take to be a good parent. Like, you're living in a one-parent household where daddy comes home and says hi for a little bit. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, like, head chefs. Like, those guys, like, chefs work 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. Like, that's what we're getting to in terms of the requirement for coaches when it comes to mixing recruiting and coaching. It's wild.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, what kind of drugs is Nick Saban on?
Yeah.
To be able to have, and Mac Brown, like, how do they possibly have, like, not even, like, it's not even like they are, like, that, I mean, maybe they're not as involved as they once were, but, like, they still have to be on, and they still have to be present all the time. And
they still have to have the meetings, and still have to have the knowledge, and still have to know these are the guys we want here, and these are the guys that we don't. I'm sure at that age, some of it includes trusting people more than you want to. But do you really think Nick Saban is co-signing, like, you're in charge of this and I'm not?
But they're still there. That's what I mean. Like, they're still there. They're still on all those times. They might not be grinding over tape and like they did 20, 30 years ago, but, like, they're still there from whatever time to whatever time. So it's like, there needs to be some major changes in that regard, or you're going to just start losing quality people.
And it does it to us too, because now we have to be not to compare us to what they're putting up with in any way, shape, or form, but, like, there's no downtime in this, because the NCAA has allowed a system where it never stops. I have a question for you on that.
Okay.
How much of this do you think maybe keeping up with the NFL that's created a 24/7, 365 industry? Like, if you're going to be relevant anymore, like they're relevant every day of every month.
They're relevant because they've set up their calendar.
I know.
But the coaches don't have to be like involved like that.
No.
Once like the draft is over and you have those initial
rookie OTAs
and mini camps, which continually get more and more condensed, and like we know in Cincinnati, like Zach Taylor, he's like it's a joke. They don't even really do anything. It's like one day, couple hour walk. Like the summer, yes, they're there and they're working, but like the summer is not any like. That's always why I laugh when if an NFL coach ever talks about like how much they work and how they like sleep in their office. I'm like, why?
Yeah.
You're doing it wrong. Like, you don't have to go to Rotary Club. You don't have to go host camps. You don't have to go recruit. You don't have to go talk to donors. Like, all you got to do is coach. And in the middle of the summer, there's nothing to coach. You're not, because the way the collective bargaining agreement works is you can't just have practice all year. So, like, there's nothing for you to do. So, yes, I would absolutely rather coach in the NFL than in college.
Yeah. All right. Well, do we timestamp now and get into
We've had some college. Let's talk a little hype. Let's talk a little basketball recruiting.
Okay.
There's been some stuff come out of late. I want to get your take on. We'll start with the most recent. Tonight, let me find it so I get it right here.
Tyler Betsy?
No, I'm going to go Sadiq White. Is this I don't know if this maybe had been discussed already.
He's unofficial for now. Yeah.
Unofficial visiting for the Oklahoma game. Was that already known, or was that?
Yeah, that came out, I think, 4 or 5 days ago.
Okay.
It's a North Carolina kid that Wes has a great relationship with. 5-star, 2025. So you probably don't want to burn that official visit right there.
Right.
But if he's good with coming to town to watch Cincinnati play Oklahoma, that's the other thing. That's the thing about the Big 12 that people don't talk about, is you can get some unexpected unofficial visits just on like, hey, you want to come check this out?
Especially if you're like, yeah, we're going to have all these other guys here,
Right. Would
you like to come and just be around all these other guys, even though it's not official? Like,
yeah.
So then you mentioned Tyler Betsy seems to have cut his list to 7.
Yeah. He's got 3 officials planned. UConn, national champions.
I think
Alabama.
It was Duke, UC, and Alabama were the ones that he hadn't unofficialed yet, I thought. Or that he hadn't officialed yet.
I think Alabama's one that's coming up.
Yeah. There were 3 that he had already taken officials to and 3 that he had plans to.
I thought Alabama he hadn't yet, but maybe he had. Maybe I'm wrong there.
No, I think it was UC, Duke, Alabama were the 3 that he was about to go on.
Yeah. I don't know if he unofficial or official to UConn or not. Whatever. Those are the 4 schools I think are the ones to keep a close eye on. UConn, Duke, Alabama. UConn, who won the national championship. Duke, who is Duke. Alabama, who was number 1 for most of last season. And Cincinnati. Wes Miller ain't fucking scared. Like, he is swinging. The names that are dropping Cincinnati in their top group are fucking absurd.
Yeah. His
absurd.
His other 3 on his list are Creighton, Indiana, and Villanova.
Yeah. I know Indiana is all in on him. We'll see. I don't get the sense that they're as heavily involved as some of the others, but we'll find out.
There's obviously the connection with Kane. He mentioned it in an article right away.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, Kane Broom is his high school coach. So we know what's going on in that regard. Obviously, that'll play a major factor. It won't be the only factor. So, and then 2025 5-star Darren Peterson will play his junior year at Huntington Prep. It seems like UC is someone that is heavily in pursuit of him as well, along with Kentucky, Kansas, North Carolina, Louisville, Michigan State, Ohio State, Michigan.
Guess where his dad was born and raised?
I'm gonna guess Cincinnati.
That is correct. He's lived up in Northern Ohio growing up, but there are definite connections and ties to Cincinnati. He is considered one of the elite prospects in that class.
All right.
Cincinnati in the mix.
Then we have Lakota West freshman combo guard Bryce Curry received an offer today from UC and Texas A&M.
Thought to be potentially a top 10, 15 kid in the 2026 class. Shall we continue? There's a theme.
Lot of work to do from there. But
there is a theme that is developing here.
Clearly.
That Wes Miller is swinging like this.
Yeah. I'm hoping that he lands some of these guys so that I can just start dropping a lot of Stan Marsh, wheelbarrow, South Park.
Look, you keep swinging, you're going to get some hits, man. You're not going to go 0 for 30. Like they're selling Jordan. They're selling playing in the best basketball conference in the country. They're selling. Look, we have a really good group of players. We have a really good team. We need an elite guy or two to come in and take this thing over the top, and you can be that guy. That's what they're selling.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's gotten comments, they talk about the three things they typically talk about across the board are relationship with Wes, Jordan, and Big 12.
And relationship with the staff, like close.
Well, I mean, they talk about other things, but like those are the three that are like.
The fourth one is right there with the other three, the relationship, not only with Wes, but the relationship they have with the staff. Like those are the four tenets of every kid that talks about Cincinnati. Maybe he'll miss on all of them. Maybe he will. I don't know.
I wouldn't bet. I mean, I'm not going to bet against it.
I'm not either. Like, here's the thing. Here's what you had to know, Dave. And then, like, we've talked about this since Wes got hired. Where did Wes come from? North Carolina. What does North Carolina do? They recruit elite players. Do you think he's going to say? Like, he believes, I can tell you this with 1,000% trust. He believes Cincinnati is one of the elite basketball programs in the country and that they should be elite in recruiting, that they should be able to recruit with anybody, anywhere.
Yep. Now here's another one. Top-rated 2026 prospect Jaden Johnson talks Michigan pursuit, the direction of Cincinnati's program in Kentucky. Starting this month, he will take visits to Indiana, Xavier, UC, West Virginia, and Texas A&M.
Yeah. It's coming.
I mean, it's the natural progression of you start building a culture, you start building a roster, and then you get you have, I'm not going to say lucky, but you have a Rayvon Griffin that is from Cincinnati that is also a highly rated top 75 player. And then you have a Tyler McKinley that you stack on. Like, you just progress and you start adding those guys. And then hopefully now that you're in the Big 12, Jizzle James, and you produce on the court will always be the most important thing. But then you can start showing like, hey, look, we recruited this level of player and look at how I've developed them. And we've stepped into this league and we're, successful right now, and now we start. But now we want to win the damn league. We don't just want to be competitive in the league.
We want to win the damn title. We want to
Right.
win the damn championship.
But I'm saying, if you win the league, you can win the title.
You're a championship contender.
So, and we need you, quote unquote, top 25, top 30 guy.
Right.
Obviously in it with Isaiah Collier and, so.
Flory for a long time. And now Jaden Quaintance that just randomly showed up on campus last week when it was a dead period and he couldn't meet with anybody at UC. He couldn't have any contact with the basketball staff, but I guess he was in Cleveland and he was going to Louisville for a basketball camp. And he decided he was just going to stop by campus and put some stuff on Instagram that he was here.
That's fun. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another USA basketball, top 10 level talent. So it's wild to watch because it's just one after another. And we're not seeing? Not seeing a whole lot of here is underrated prospect, 3-star, number 130 in the country.
No.
That's high on UC. We're not seeing a whole lot of that right now.
No, we're not.
I'm just saying. I'm not saying. Just saying.
Yep. So things are looking nice, and obviously once the season starts, get into that, and visits, especially the Oklahoma visit, be very, very, very interested to see
who all's here,
especially in this upcoming class, because we've talked about the number of potential spots, and it seems like there's more guys interested than there might be spots available.
Well, I think the fascinating part is going to be they're in a position where they can swing for the Grand Slam. But if they get Tyler McKinley and one more top 50 level guy, that's a big time class. And you just supplement it from there. But if they're able to get 4 top 50 guys, then you take 4 top 50 guys, and guess what? You figure it the fuck out.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But
that's a fun spot to be in. We only need 2, but if we get 4, we'll take 4.
You got Jace Richardson and Travis Perry on campus, and the young man you just mentioned,
Jaden Quaintance,
for
Island, Jasper Johnson,
right? Yeah,
he might be a 2024. I don't know.
It's just a little easier to be like, hey, we're playing Oklahoma this week. Do you want to just come by?
Right.
Versus hey, we're playing Temple. What do you got going on this weekend?
Coach, I'm busy.
I
got stuff to do.
One of the best jokes ever, and it works in this sense. It was one of the old Comedy Central roasts where I think it was Emmett Smith's roast. Or Shaq's roast or somebody's, and Jeff Ross was like, Jerry Jones wanted to be here, but he had anything better to do.
Right.
So it's like, sorry, Coach, I literally have anything better to do than to come to this game when you're playing, USF.
Oh, Oklahoma at Nippert Stadium? Yeah, I'll come kick it. Hang out.
Yeah. So very, very fun, very exciting. Again, basketball will be here. Starts in 2 months? October?
Yeah. It's not far. Far. All right. That's the official timestamp for Dave's new favorite drink, Turtles Brew. 0 sugar, 0 carbs, gluten-free. Now that we have the story, Dave, this is fucking wild to me. That they were like, look, man, no more beer. And the guy was like, okay, I'll just come up with my own
drink.
I'll just come up with my own popular drink sold in stores. And we'll sell it by the half gallon.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I'm even more on Turtles Brew than I was. I was in on Turtles Brew. Now I'm all the way in on Turtles Brew. Now that we got to meet Turtle. Cherry lime, raspberry peach, orange vanilla, 50 locations in greater Cincinnati, 6% ABV. Visit turtlesbrew.com for more information and locations. A portion of the proceeds go to Save the Sea Turtles. They're in Cincinnati. They're in Toledo. They're now expanding in Central Ohio. Dave, when this stuff goes on Shark Tank, I think we need a cut. I think we need a cut.
I don't disagree.
I'm just saying. All right. Well, we've already done an hour and 44 minutes, and we haven't touched on the most explosive stuff happening today
Yeah.
in sports. What the fuck is happening, Dave? Catch everybody up. I went to get dinner. I was, hanging out with the child after practice and doing the practice report. And I just glanced at Twitter, and all fucking hell is breaking loose.
Yeah, there's a lot. And
there's a lot of indication that this shit could go down by like Friday.
Yeah,
that never happens.
I mean, since we last talked, let's just clean some things up. The Pac-12, George Kliavkoff was essentially forced to show an actual deal. Yeah. I don't want to give all of the details because I want our listeners, our subscribers, to go to the Arizona site, read the work that Jason Scheer has done. He's done some great work. He's
amazing, man.
Put out an article tonight. Sounds like the deal came in somewhere around $24.5 million, but virtually all streaming.
No, the deal came in. Best we can do is $24.5 million. But we're gonna have to do this, and this to get there.
Well, but also virtually all streaming. That's the bigger issue than the money. And there'd been talk of selling games, whatever, which truly, selling games never made sense, because if Apple's going to pay all this money, why would they then sell the best games to ESPN or Fox? Because ESPN or Fox aren't going to buy a C-level game. They don't care. So then their talk was, well, maybe they'll be simulcast, where, and I think we've seen some of that with the MLS, where a game is on Apple, but it's also on Fox. I don't follow it, so I'm not 100% sure. There'd been talk that maybe that could be in play. But the Arizona president has publicly said, anything more than 50-50 streaming linear is not acceptable. And even if you simulcast the best game each week, that still leaves you 70, 80+% of your content being behind a paywall. And it's for the people that aren't familiar, because if you're not a soccer fan, you might not know how the MLS's deal with Apple works. It's like having ESPN Plus but then having to pay for UFC. So you'd have the Apple subscription, the Apple Plus or Apple TV subscription, but then you're still paying extra for the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And it's not, you can't recruit in that world. You can't, there's no promotion. They talked about levels of subscriptions, which I'm like, hey, Pac-12 guys, remember when Larry Scott sold you on that with the Pac-12 network? That worked out really well. Why would you go back and do this again? Anyway, Colorado finally said enough was enough. The money's not right. The distribution of the games isn't right. And frankly, the long-term stability isn't right. We're out. Okay. So then over the weekend, in the beginning of the week, it's okay, well, they're out, but can the Pac-12 still survive? Can they salvage? Blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden the other day, it just basically became to the point where it sounded like Arizona was starting to move in that direction of the Big 12. And there was a lot of talk of, can they separate from Arizona State? Again, their president had long said, yes, we can. We are not.
We don't want to, but we can.
Yes, we prefer not to. They're not going to tell us we can't. Today was conference realignment Armageddon. You have multiple people reporting that, which is hilarious because last week the Big Ten was put out a comment about how we are solely focused on the bringing UCLA and USC on, and we're not thinking about conference expansion. Then all of a sudden today we are solely focused on this, but we also want to make sure that we're keeping our president abreast of the changing dynamics of the college sports landscape. And many people have reported that they have a subgroup of presidents that are now discussing expansion, have re-engaged, so to speak, with ideally Oregon and Washington, which I'm sure when the deal was presented and Colorado left, those people picked up their phones and said, what do we have to do to get into the Big Ten? Because if I'm Oregon and Washington, not only
all it takes is Arizona to move, and now the Pac-12's done, and you're screwed.
But if you're Oregon and Washington, why would you sign that deal? You're going to tell me that my yearly budget, I'm not going to really know because a lot of it's going to be tied to how many Apple subscriptions there are.
Right.
But my yearly budget, we're the power schools in this conference. My yearly budget is going to be determined by how many fans of Stanford, Cal, Oregon State, and Washington State sign up for Apple TV.
We probably have more subscribers than Bearcat Journal.
Like, I can't go to my board. I can't go to my whoever and be like, yep, we don't know how much we're going to get this year because, if Washington State has a down year or if Cal just officially stops caring, like, that means we're going to make X amount of dollars less than we did last year.
We might not be able to pay 14 people in the athletic department, including 6 head coaches. Because Cal and Stanford and Oregon State decided we're out.
They're hoping, I imagine, they were hoping that this would happen. And it seemed, and you listen to the president or the AD of Arizona State, and Arizona State has been a staunch Pac-12 supporter. Their president, Michael Crow, was the epitome of a Larry Scott, shill. They do not want to leave. But the AD was asked today, talked about it for 2 minutes, and the tone of his comments is totally different than it has been. And now I mentioned earlier they have the meeting tomorrow night. I'm very interested still to see what happens with Utah. They don't seem to be in play for the Big Ten with whatever the Big Ten is trying to pull. They have been very, very against going to the Big 12, and I don't necessarily blame them. Like, the Pac-12 extended them a lifeline when they moved from the Mountain West, and they've been very damn good. They've won the Pac-12 the last 2 years. They probably look at it as, we can run this league, but there's not going to be a league for them to run for much longer. So, I think they're going to be brought in as well. If I'm guessing right now, I think, it's probably going to go to 16 with Arizona State, and Utah. How quick? I don't know. Altogether, that would be a very Brett Yormark move to have this be one big announcement. I did see a funny tweet saying that his press release should say, we have decided to go shopping at the Pac-12. But yes, it's just wild. You have the Florida State people now are just outright saying that we cannot be in this league anymore unless there
We're done. We're out on the ACC. Out.
Unless there are drastic changes in how the revenue is distributed. That's all well and good. I'm still trying to figure out how they're going to pull this off and who is dying to take them. I guess that's the other part.
The SEC would take them in 1 second.
I don't agree.
Okay.
I think if they try to pull this off and it results in the blow up of the ACC, I think the SEC is fighting the Big Ten for North Carolina and Virginia before they add FSU.
Okay.
But the Big Ten is also now like
Boy, how mad is UCF going to be when Florida State joins the Big 12?
Well, that's the funny part about this is this, and I'm the one time in my life I have been on UCF side. Them being in the Big 12 and eventually making more money per year than Florida State is what is driving this.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. Florida State cannot stand for that.
They cannot fathom that little old Central Florida is going to be in a better position than they are.
One of the trustees at FSU was quoted today saying it would be death by 1,000 cuts to stay in the ACC.
Yeah, and only have $30 million a year.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the tweet because I want to get it right because Richard Johnson from SI and the Split Zone Duo podcast said it perfectly. He said the difference between the Big Ten and the SEC in the Power 2 binary is that the SEC just does the thing. The Big Ten does it and still tries to keep its moral high ground, which is how the league has operated for a century. Like the whole we don't want to be seen as the people, the league that destroyed that put the final nail in the Pac-12. Like you fucking added UCLA and USC. Like you kind of already shot the guy. Like you might not be the reason he dies, but you're the reason he dies.
You're the reason he was in the hospital. Like he died from an infection, but you were the reason he was in the hospital.
So like this whole idea of we're going to sit back and let the Big 12 or let these other schools in the Pac-12 decide that the conference is going to get blown up, and then we're going to feast on the underprivileged
carcass.
Youth, so to speak.
No, the carcass. There's the carcass.
Who are desperate to get out, and we're going to bring them in at a partial share and be looked at. Well, we're saving you guys, Bob.
Yeah, because we're good and wholesome like that.
Give me a break. And that's the difference. Me as evolved, and I've always hated the Big Ten because, like that tweet said, you do the same stuff the SEC does. You just act like you don't.
Right.
And then you cry about how the SEC cheats and how the SEC does this. And
remember, Dave, the Pac-10 and the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are supposed to be lifelong partners.
Yeah, they formed an alliance, Chad.
But before that, the Rose Bowl.
Oh, the Rose Bowl.
These are supposed to be the two best friends that anyone can ever have.
Yeah.
Husband and wife. The divorce is not a divorce of we grew apart. The divorce is I murdered my wife.
Yeah. I mean, it's we're sitting over here just waiting for things to go bad, and now we're going to come in and swoop up your best properties because you don't have any other place to go. But we weren't the ones that caused it. No. Don't get that twisted. We didn't do this. But so I mean, wild day. I don't know how. I mean, it seems like it's going to go pretty damn fast. I mean, if Arizona and Arizona State are going to have a meeting tomorrow, it's not about some joint NIL
Right.
thing, and they're going to do, team up with the local food pantry.
Right.
It's obviously, I mean, it would seem obvious that they're getting on the same page to make an announcement because, again, if the announcement or if their plan was to accept the Pac-12 deal, they don't need to have a executive meeting for that.
Right.
So it seems like that's the direction this is going. We'll see. I mean, I've seen some things this could move as quick as Friday. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I mean, if you haven't,
very fast.
if you haven't, if it follows the Colorado plan, if they have this meeting tomorrow, and then as soon as that meeting's over, they schedule one for the next day, then it's kind of is what's going to happen.
Matt wants to know if you can see the Big Ten going after Florida State.
I could.
Yeah. Why not go to Florida?
I mean, yeah. That's the thing. That one makes more sense to me than the SEC does.
Because they're already there, and
they're already there.
Own it with Florida, yeah.
Like, you already have the best.
But I could see Florida and Florida State going, fuck Central Florida. Like, we are going to crush them.
The Big Ten could take Florida State and Miami, and do one of those deals and add them to Oregon and Stanford maybe, and have 20. The Big Ten is always a weird one though, because are they ever going to make a move that would preclude them from adding Notre Dame if Notre Dame decided to join a conference?
Right.
Because if you do that, if you take Stanford now and you take Oregon now, you're at 18. And say somehow, I don't know how, these teams in the ACC are able to break up this grant of rights in the somewhat near future.
Right.
Are you going to take 2 more and go to 20? And then, like, what if Notre Dame's then, like, 5 years from now, 7 years from now, is like, yeah, we'd like to join, actually. This playoff thing's not working out for us. This NBC deal is not as good as we thought. Like, are they going to go to 21? Are they then going to go to 24? Like, who the hell knows?
But Notre Dame's going to get $60 million a year from NBC.
I would think so. I think they're going to get whatever they want.
Like, I am not worried about Notre Dame being forced to join a conference.
I'm not
if
either.
They don't want to join a conference. They will never join a conference.
I've never thought that they will, because I've always been under the assumption that they'll get what is enough for them.
Even if there's a power 2, Dave, even if it's Big Ten SEC, I still think Notre Dame would find a place to exist as the one, like, fly in the oyster.
Well, they set it up that way for the playoff.
Right.
The expanded playoff. Like, they agreed, like, that they're giving up the chance to have a home game to basically always make it.
Right.
If they have a good year.
Yeah.
So why
Not a great year, a good year.
If they're making they don't have to join a conference, so they don't have to go. That's the thing that people are always
They don't have to split the money.
They don't have to split the money. They don't have to go. They can set up their own their own schedule and play these games in Ireland and New York City and Vegas and Atlanta and like wherever they want. They make all the money off that. They don't have to go to Purdue and Indiana and Minnesota and make Maryland and Rutgers. Like, they have their sweetheart deal with the ACC that gives them quality games, and then they fill in the rest with all of them with their rivals, whether it's Michigan.
Quality
USC.
Games they should win 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. So I've never felt that the money would be bad enough to make them join a conference, because the access is always going to be there, because the SEC wants them to be happy, because if it came down to it, they'd always choose the Big Ten over the SEC. So the SEC would rather have them be independent than be in the Big Ten.
Right. And both of them, if it all came down to it, would give Notre Dame a spot at the table if there was a Big Ten SEC like championship situation.
Right, because if you added Notre Dame to the Big Ten, you know how much more money the Big Ten would get? Just add the NBC contract. The Big Ten would just say, you can keep the NBC contract, like the games exactly how you want it. We're going to add that money in here, and now we're going to have whatever, and you'll still get your good cut, but like now we all split up a little bit of it too.
Right. I keep hearing the Big Ten is waiting on Notre Dame. Of course they are. Notre Dame doesn't give a shit. They are above the law. They are God in this situation.
Yeah, I don't know. And plus with NBC now when their new TV deal comes up with the Big Ten, NBC is now airing Big Ten games, so they can now run Notre Dame promotions on the Big Ten NBC game
Right.
to keep you watching. Like you're
Later
watching
tonight, Notre Dame, USC.
Now you're watching NBC for two windows in a row.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if they join the league, it doesn't necessarily mean that way.
What if the ACC blows up and Notre Dame loses those guaranteed quality games? Then they just scheduled them on their own,
just like they used to before they had that agreement in place.
Right, Josh. They are ironclad, dude. They are bulletproof. Do you think Virginia or Boston College or Louisville or who, like, you think those teams aren't going to still schedule a game against Notre Dame or a home and home against Notre Dame
or other
a neutral
teams.
site or a neutral site in Notre Dame in Dublin, Ireland, or whatever the case may be? Absolutely, they
It doesn't
will.
even have to be those ACC
I know.
teams.
I'm just giving that as an example.
Yeah.
They're going to do whatever the hell they want to do, and there's nothing anybody can do about it.
Yeah, But from a Big 12 standpoint, it's funny. We had a good conversation on the board today, and I'm talking about how I'm not exactly like gung ho about blowing past 14 because when you're UC and you're going from what you were in to what you're in now,
yeah,
there isn't more best. Like UC
No.
is
You're
in.
Just be in.
UC is in the best basketball conference now. Adding UConn, okay, great. So it's more better than it was. Like I don't need UConn. I have enough good teams. Like the SEC, I talked about how I didn't want Oklahoma and Texas to join because Tennessee finally figured their stuff out. And now you just add two more teams that are as good or better. Like,
right.
For what? You already were the best. So, like,
Right.
I was trying to make the point of, like, let's not lose sight of the winning is the most important thing. And conference realignment has done a really good job of getting people to care about their conference media deal or their school's budget. Like, who gives a shit? But people talk about that. I mean, we're guilty of it. We talk about it all the time. I mean, because UC's been in the middle of it for so long. But, like, I didn't want Utah. I didn't want another team that's really good to get in the way of us potentially, like, making the playoff. Like, if they did what they needed to do in the Big 12 the way that it's set up, all of the things that we would want to happen could happen.
Right.
It's not like they're not devoid of good teams. This isn't the AAC. Like, they're not devoid of opportunity anymore.
Right.
So what's the point? Like, if they're not going to bring – my point was if the additions aren't going to massively raise the value financially of the conference, then what is the point? Because all you're doing is making it harder for you to win games.
Sure.
But if the Pac-12 actually does totally just go away, then yes, it would make sense to add Arizona State, and Utah.
Sure.
And then see what happens.
There's a real good chance it's going away.
Yeah, and then sit here and see how much saber rattling and how much things Florida State can actually do.
Right.
And then if that happens, and then 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 we talk about additions from that world, and you get to 20, and you have essentially 3 power conferences. Well, you have 2 power conferences, and then the other guys.
Yeah. And I'm okay being the other guys. We've been the other guys for the entirety of the existence of the University of Cincinnati.
Yeah, because
I'd just rather be the other guys in 3rd than the other guys in 7th.
Because when you get to that point, it's not going to matter who you add. You're not going to catch them financially.
No.
Like the properties that would be available to you to add are not going to bridge the gap from what the Big Ten and the SEC are making. You could add 100 teams; it's not going to matter.
Right.
So I mean, for us, selfishly, it would be. I think I said it'd be easier. Like, yeah, I would love to be back in a conference with Louisville and Pitt. And that would be easier.
Absolutely.
That would be easier. It would be funner. I don't know if it would be better. Like, it doesn't necessarily make the Big 12 as a whole better. It makes it better for us personally, selfish Cincinnati fans. But I don't know if it makes it better.
No, it just makes it different.
It's just a big group of second-tier programs.
Which is kind of where we're heading anyway.
Right. Until we go to the SEC.
Until the SEC says, I need Ohio.
Yep.
And you guys are it. It's wild, man. Like, it's so... The stuff happens. Like, everybody panics. Nobody has any chill. Everybody loses their fucking mind the minute that one thing happens.
I mean, Florida State won a national championship 10 years ago, and they're talking like they've been eating in the bread lines for the last 10 years. Like, dude,
yeah.
You want to talk about being poor? Like, hey, over here.
Right.
Like, you can't compete.
Can I have some more porridge, sir?
Like you guys can't compete if you don't make more money. Hello.
But that's also why Cincinnati spent like $300 million.
Yeah, and that's Florida
They just put it all on credit.
Florida State spent it too.
True that.
But
all right, I don't think we have a whole lot more else to. Do you have anything else for tonight?
I don't think so.
All right, let's call it a show. This show is going to be wild for the foreseeable future. What do you got there? Like, are you looking at something else to talk about, or are you just you're done?
No, yeah, I was just trying to see if there was anything else that happened while we were talking, other than the Reds apparently not playing well.
Shit the bed. They shit the bed.
Good thing they
3-0, 5-2, and now it's 10-5. Cubs.
Man, maybe they should have traded for some pitching.
Yeah, don't get me started. 12-3 tomorrow. I'm in on Cincy 360 on ESPN 1530, and I will have many takes.
Are you with anybody? Are you solo?
No. So Pike is on vacation, and I think Austin went to a country concert tonight where he was like, "I'm not coming in tomorrow." So it's me. I don't even know who my producer is. I do have a great guest at 12:30 if you're interested tomorrow. Jim Kelly.
All right.
Jim Kelly joining me tomorrow at 12:30. You don't get much better than that.
Bearcats Hall of Famer, Jim Kelly.
Also high on the receivers today.
He was. That was in my camp report. I usually do not embed tweets.
Takes
but
one to know
I embedded
one.
a tweet in my camp report that Jim Kelly was impressed by the receivers. I've got a beef with Austin Elmore that I'm going to talk about tomorrow.
Okay.
He had Dan Horde on the program yesterday. Not only did he not ask Dan Horde a UC question, he never even mentioned that Dan Horde was the voice of the Bearcats.
What did he ask him about?
The Bengals.
Bengals?
Yeah. The voice of the Bengals, Dan Horde, here with us on Cincy 360, never once mentioned that Dan also has another very prominent job in the city. And the training camp, Dan Horde was at the Scott Satterfield presser yesterday, was on the radio with Austin Elmore 15 minutes after the presser ended, and was not asked one Cincinnati Bearcats question.
Well, Austin Elmore is a Ohio State fan, so what do you expect?
Yeah, I'm going to call him out. And you know the beautiful part about me calling him out?
I don't know what.
I'm not on radio again until like August 24th. So I can just set everything on fire tomorrow and then walk away for like 3 weeks. Literally 3 weeks, I can just walk away.
Before we go,
yeah,
real quick, Chris Karpman, who is the publisher of Sun Devil Source on the 24/7 network, retweeted the tweet I mentioned earlier from Ross Dellinger about the Arizona border regions and said, "This is it. Expect the Big 12 to meet privately tomorrow and vote publicly as soon as Friday. ASU and Arizona are very close to exiting the Pac whatever.
Everybody's given like, has there ever been a worse? Maybe this is a topic for a nightcap when this happens.
Oh, I want a 30 for 30 like how the Big East fell apart. I need a 30 for 30 on Larry Scott and George Kliakoff and how they single-handedly torpedoed the Conference of Champions and put Bill Walton in the goddamn hospital.
Is he in the hospital?
That man needs a wellness check because he is dead right now.
How many psychedelics?
All of the psychedelics.
Has Bill Walton
all of the psychedelics.
Today.
All of the psychedelics.
I mean, no one has stumped for the Conference of Champions more than Walton. And now it will
Yes,
be
they have. John Canzano and John Wilmer.
No one
and Stuart Mandel.
Stuart Mandel is like, fuck these guys, man.
Not today. He doubled back. He doubled back today.
No one that is respected has stumped harder for the Pac-12 than one Bill Walton.
I want a 30 for 30 on how two guys that were essentially coming into this respected journalists destroyed their entire career.
Wilner
broke the USC and UCLA news. Wilner was was an elite, respected journalist.
Though, not even close as bad as Canzano. Not even.
Well, but Canzano wasn't as respected as Wilner.
But yeah,
that part is fascinating to me. Fascinating that you would just throw your career away listening to like the presidents at Washington State and Oregon State that everybody knew had nothing to do with this. It's like if the SEC blew up, like if the SEC was facing impending doom and your two sources were the presidents or the ADs at Kentucky and Vanderbilt. What are you doing? You've put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Oh, man.
Crazy. It's crazy. This shit is wild, man. Like, we've been talking about this for a decade. Like, as long as we've been doing, what are we on? 391 shows? We've been talking about this for 391 weeks, Dave. I never could have seen it go this bad for the Pac-12 this fast. Never.
No.
Like 3 weeks ago, you were still like, I just can't believe that they're this stupid. I can't believe that they would let this happen. And here we are. Like this week, we're at a place where this week.
Here's the thing, though. I mean, you can't just make your own deal. And if the deal is never there, then it's just never there. At least to the what the presidents and schools want it to be.
Sure.
And that's what it's come down to. I mean, we can talk about all the missteps that George has made, from overvaluing the conference as a whole when the Big Ten signed their deal, telling the presidents that we're going to get 65 to 75% of what the Big Ten, like all of his comments, like none of it matters. The deal just has never been there.
Never there.
And,
it's never there.
And there's nothing he can, like, we can shit on him and make fun of him, and we will, but like, there's nothing he could do about that.
No.
The whole dynamic of media and television and rights it's never been like this. Everybody thought streaming was going to take off, and it's been a total money pit. And that has been...
that's what people never considered. They always considered people will just subscribe, but they never considered the cost of like what it costs to do what ESPN is, like the infrastructure that ESPN and
what it
Fox
costs
to
make all the content that you put on the streaming platform.
Yeah, like what it costs to like have to build a fucking multi-million-dollar production truck.
or
that can be
to
on
make
site.
to make 300 movies.
Right. Well, but I'm talking about just sports. Like even
Right,
just
but that's
sports.
where they made the money. Like
Sure.
they're not making money. Like streamers are not making money.
Right.
So they're certainly not going to spend money they don't have on live sports rights.
Because they don't have the ability to
Right.
produce live sports.
Yeah.
Like
So
that's what it ultimately comes down to.
and
Like that is money ESPN spent years ago.
the only like we've talked about, maybe said it ad nauseum. Brett Yarmark not going to market and just saying Fox, ESPN, let's just run this shit back.
Yeah.
How
We're
much?
not interested in streaming. We don't want to fuck around.
We're not going to take this to the open market.
Yeah.
We like working with you guys. You know what the hell to do. It's an easy contract. You know, what's the value? Okay, you give us a little bit more money than we had before, even though we lose Texas and Oklahoma. Wipe our hands on to the next endeavor.
Right.
Like
that's a guy that knows how to do deals.
That is someone that, one, knows how to do deals, and two, has a good understanding of what their product's true value is.
Yeah.
And also understands the market and understands that going to market, opening up the negotiating window, what are the chances that the offer we get is so substantially more that versus the risk of what the Pac-12 is now dealing with?
Yeah. And pissing off.
Understanding
what did the Pac-12 do? They pissed off ESPN and Fox to the point that ESPN and Fox were like, we don't fucking need you.
It's the elitist mentality of a lot of these schools and presidents.
Yeah. We might go shopping there.
There's no way that our product couldn't be valued like this. Like Brett Yarmark realized, Brett Yarmark realized, yes, you at Texas Tech and you at Baylor and you at Iowa State, like you love the Big 12 and you think it's the fucking greatest thing ever. But here's the cold hard truth. It's not. It's nice. ESPN and Fox would be thrilled to have it, but they don't need it because they need the SEC. They need the Big Ten. They need the NFL. They need Major League Baseball. They need the NBA. Like, they don't need us.
Right.
They don't have to pay for us.
They'd like to have us, but they don't need us.
Right. And he realized that and that's this whole thing. And like all the talking we've done is about understanding business, understanding markets, and understanding your true value. And the Pac-12 has not had any semblance of understanding of those things throughout this entire process.
And you know why? It's because they've always had USC and UCLA.
Yeah.
Where we have the number 2 market. So no matter what, we always have significant value because of those two. And with those two gone, you don't mean shit.
And you have a group.
I know you like to think your shit don't stay, but lean a little bit closer.
Well,
roses really smell like boo, woo, woo, woo. Yeah. That's the song. That's the Pac-12's song at their funeral.
Yeah.
I left you speechless. I think that's where we stop.
Yes, you singing Outcasts is a good place to stop.
Thanks to all of our sponsors. I hope you got 10 minutes. The Holy Grail. Thanks to Team Ticker. Thanks to Home Field Apparel. Thanks to Turtles Brew. Everyone that wants to be a part of this. It's been pretty wild how many people are in the inbox wanting to be a part of the BCJ network. It's very fun. We're just getting started. So thanks to everybody for tuning in. All the great content is on BCJ. 75% off through Thursday at midnight. Get yourself a full year of Bearcat Journal for $26. We'll see you soon. That's the BCJ podcast brought to you by the Holy Grail, and you're on BearcatJournal.com.